Hi, my name is Eric Larson. Welcome to the Sign Industry Podcast, episode 1. I'd like to say, first of all, a big shout out to Signs of the Times magazine and Smart Media for being our media sponsor and for helping us get this podcast off the ground. Mark and Lou and Mildred have been with us hand in hand since we first started the idea of the Sign Industry Podcast, and they're helping us see this thing through. And so far, it's doing really well. Even though this is our very first episode, there's a lot of things that went on behind the scenes, a lot of Zoom meetings, all kinds of other things. But yeah, it's going really good. Eric at Smart Media is also helping us out with the formatting and getting things ready there. He's going to be the one in charge of putting each episode up on the Signs of the Times website. And there you'll be able to find a link over to the YouTube channel, which you're hopefully watching right now, and also the podcast audio, which is going to be on Spotify, Apple, and all the other fun podcast things that are out there. Um, Van Ladder, I have to say, stepped up right off the bat. When I wrote the article in Signs of the Times magazine a couple months back and mentioned possibly doing a podcast, um, it went really quick that Joe over there at Van Ladder called me up and said, "Hey, we would really like to be your sponsor of the show." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding! We got sponsors." So Joe, thank you very much for being our first corporate sponsor. Van Ladder, the bucket truck that simplifies sign work. See how I did that there? Um, they are going to be with us hopefully a very long time. He's happy so far. So be sure at the Sign Expo to look them up at Van Ladder. Say hello to Joe and everybody else that's over there. And we will be doing a live interview podcast with them at the show. So stop in and see that. We're also going to be based at the Signs of the Times magazine booth. You can't miss us. We're going to have a very big banner, 8 foot by 10 foot banner, with the Sign Industry Podcast logo and a bunch of other stuff on it. Not going to be able to miss it. You'll see it. So stop in, say hi. If we got time and we're looking to do it, maybe we'll invite you in and do a bit of a podcast with us and get you on the air. We're going to be live back and forth on YouTube, depending on what time of the day it is and all the different editing and things like that that Jacob, our engineer, has to do. Jacob owns Bourbon Bay Productions. Jacob's my son. I own Bourbon Bay Productions with him. He hosts podcasts, he edits podcasts and records them and uploads them, does all kinds of things for people who don't want to get into all the equipment but still want to do a podcast. Jacob takes care of all that stuff for him. So thank you, Jacob, for joining Dad and helping me on this little adventure. Um, Two other people that we're going to be interviewing, two other companies, I should say, that we're going to be interviewing at the Sign Expo is Mimica is one of them. Mimica, they've impressed me a lot over the last few years. Well, for a long time, actually. I've been in the sign business forever. Um, I remember the first flatbed printer that I saw was a Mimica, and I seen that thing working. I'm like, that right there, as a sign designer, gives me a lot of ideas and things that I can do. And yeah, I found people that have the Mimica flatbed printer, and I have teamed up with some of those companies and done some really cool sign work. One of the others that we're going to be interviewing is Zund. Hopefully, I said that right. It's a company. They do digital cutting, signs, soft signage, banners, decals, things like that. They've got all the equipment for that type of stuff. So we're going to be speaking with them as well. And we got all kinds of opportunities for sponsorship coming up on all of the podcasts if you're interested. I can tell you right now, Signs of the Times magazine averages about 60,000 hits a month on the website and all the other socials that they have. And we hope to be a big part of that. And here's what the show is going to be about. started to listen to me talking about all this stuff. I've been in the sign business since I was 12 years old. So that would have been late 70s. Okay. A long time ago. I've done everything in the sign industry. I hand lettered a boat. That was the very first thing that I did when I was 12. My next door neighbor, I grew up on a lake. My next door neighbor was getting their boat hand lettered by a gentleman. And at 12 years old, I was bored, didn't have nothing to do. And so I went over and started bugging the guy. Next thing you know, he handed me a paintbrush and he handed me a board and a little can of paint and said, "Stay over there, leave me alone, be quiet, just do what I do." And that's what I did. I guess I was bugging him that much. Anyways, so by the time he was done with the boat, he took a look at what I did on the board, and next thing you know, I was his apprentice. I was an apprentice under Mr. Gomez for about 3 years, and then he passed away. And when he passed away, he left me all of his pinstriping and hand lettering brushes that I still have today. Some of them were handmade, in fact. Um, and I don't use them anymore because they are pretty special to me. But I still do hand lettering and I still do pinstriping every now and then when I get in the mood to do so. I'm an artist first and foremost. As you see behind me, I got a couple of things there that I got going on. That eyeball right there, that's all graphite. That's an experiment that I'm doing right now with photorealism. I plan on doing a giant graphite piece that's going to be about 10 feet tall and about 6 feet wide. It's been up in my head for many, many years, and I'm going to get started on it. This is my art studio right now. It's in the basement of my house, which is very historic. It built in 1867, and it's an Italianate Victorian style home. And it's something I've always dreamed of having. I have a tower and a spiral staircase, and it's brick, and it's got all the old original windows. It's a dream come true for me. Um, so eventually I'm going to be moving out of here. I've got another art studio that I'm opening up in the small town that I live in, downtown in another historic building. So I'm going to be getting into that. So I'm an artist to begin with, and I just happen to do signs as a living. I started out, like I said, hand lettering. From there, I worked in a sign shop for another company for a gentleman named Warren Libke in Bay City, Michigan. He had a sign company that he started back in the 1930s and 40s. And when I went to work for him in the 1980s, he was in his 80s. He was an older gentleman, taught me how to bend neon. Uh, Wonderful guy. Loved learning bending neon. I gotta say, neon benders, they're a different group of people. Uh, but they have a talent. Unless you've bent neon, I mean, it's hard to explain. You get that glass in your hand and you start rolling it and heating it and all that other stuff. It's becomes a real art, and you get into a groove, and it sends you to a whole new level, I guess you'd say. So neon benders, I have a place in my heart for you guys because that I just love doing it. I don't have the opportunity to do that anymore. I haven't for quite a while, and I'd probably be very rusty at it, and I would probably suck at it really, really bad right now. But what I did do after that is I got into fabrication of signage, from welding and wiring, decorating sign faces, painting vinyl cutters when vinyl came out. Um, all that stuff, digital format printing, did all that for quite a while. Had my own sign company for quite some time. Moved my sign company into a design company only. So I design signs and I enjoy doing it. It's fun. I love my job. I love doing what I do. Uh, I've taken history classes in architecture. Uh, so Historic architecture, Art Deco is my very favorite. Um, the signs of I would say, 1950s through the early 1970s are my favorite. They had character, color. shapes, sizes, everything else, all kinds of neon all over them. Those are that's my favorite era of signage. I've recently interviewed for the show, as a matter of fact, a company out in San Francisco that has started a preservation company or a preservation nonprofit that does nothing but restore and rehabilitate old signs from that era that I just described. And what they're doing out there is really cool. You'll have to listen to the episode and watch. That's a two-parter. The first part's audio. The second part will be on YouTube. You're going to have to watch that. Very interesting. Um, Also, there is a company in Denver that is redoing signs in the Denver area that's rehabilitating signs. We're going to talk to them. And it's kind of spread. They've turned into an international kind of thing now. And they've got people from all over the world coming to a convention that they just started recently and learning about rehabilitating and restoring old signage. So we're going to talk to those people. Uh, One of the main things that I want to do though is I want to talk to you. I want to get your story. If you're a fabricator, installer, um, you know, sign designer, even if you're doing the books, I don't care. I want to talk to you. You're in the sign industry. That's what this podcast is all about. It's about the sign industry. That's why it's called the Sign Industry Podcast. Um, I want to interview the owners of sign companies, find out what their history is, how they got started, and as far as anybody that's in the sign industry, I want to find out how you got started, what got you into it, what did you find interesting about it that made you think, I want to be a sign person. Um, One of the things that I'm going to stress always is that we need to bring in a younger group of people. Uh, Face it, we look around right now, the people that we have working in our shop out in the field, they're in their 40s, their 50s. Very few of us have anybody in the shop that's in their 20s or early 30s for that matter. And we're in trouble. So we got to figure out what we're going to do to bring people in to replace all of us that are going to be moving out. Myself, I love what I do, so I'll probably never retire. Uh, just something about you know designing signage. I know it sounds weird, but it's like I wouldn't want to get into medicine because why would I want to do that? It doesn't interest me. Signs and art and architectural history, that type of stuff, that interests me. Getting back to getting some kids involved in this, I taught an art class for 10 years at a private school locally. And That was, man, it had been 6 to 10 years ago that I was doing that. And three of the kids that were in my art class are now working for local sign companies. And so that is one way to get kids involved. You got to find them, find out who's interested, bring them in. And what we did with these kids is we brought them into the sign shop of the place that I'm friends with, the owner of the sign company. And we said, hey, look, here's John and here's Sarah, and we're going to let them loose into the sign shop for a day, and we're going to let them experience each one of the different components of the sign industry, from design to vinyl cutting to fabrication, installation, all that stuff. We're going to let them figure out what it is that they like about the sign industry, and then kind of ease them into that and see if they can turn it into a career. And like I said, three of the kids that I introduced to this are still working in the sign industry for the sign companies that I introduced them to. And they're now in their mid 20s. And hey, it's a start. It's a little bit, but it's a start. Um, well, I'm going to cut it short. I'm going to try to keep these episodes to 20 minutes to a half an hour. If we're interviewing some sponsors, we're going to go a little bit longer. If you'd like to be a sponsor of the Sign Industry Podcast, you can get a hold of me at I am Eric Larson at gmail.com. That is IAMERICLARSEN at gmail.com. And I will get you set up with Lou over at Sons of the Times Magazine, and we'll get you guys in touch with each other so we can bring you on board as a sponsor. If you want to be part of the podcast, um, and think you have an interesting story, or you want to tell your story about your experience in the sign industry, whether it be from low man on the totem pole that's sweeping the floor on up to the owner of the business, or the person that's doing the next future technology in the sign industry, get a hold of me the same way. I am Eric Larson at gmail.com, and we'll talk. Let's see if we can get you to do an episode. Episodes are going to be probably about 2 a month to start out. As we grow, we'll probably increase that. Signs of the Times magazine and their social media gets right about 60,000 hits a month. So we're hoping to get at least some of you that are going to Signs of the Times magazine and looking around, maybe hop on over to the podcast or the YouTube channel, which will be available on Signs of the Times magazine as well, and have a look at us. Just take a quick look, see if you're interested. If you're driving down the road to a project, put us on your Bluetooth, blast us over your speakers. If you want a comedy relief during a lunch period or something like that, put me in your ears, your headphones or whatever. Be more than happy to uh, be your entertainment for a while. Uh, I think that's really about it. All I have to say right now, except for welcome to the Sign Industry Podcast. Thank you, Van Ladder, for being our first corporate sponsor. And thank you, Signs of the Times Magazine, for being our media sponsor. I will see you at the Sign Expo. Stop in at the Signs of the Time booth. We will be there. If we're not there, you look for a guy that's about 6'4" with hair out to here. He'll probably have headphones on and a big camera and a bunch of recording equipment. That's my son, Jacob. So we're going to be there all 3 days from start to finish. Stop on in, say hello. If you see us at one of the parties in the evening, stop on over. Let's talk, and maybe we'll sign you up for an episode. I'll talk to you soon, and thank you very much for tuning in.